All right. Welcome to another episode of the Agency Hustle, where agency owners, freelancers, and digital entrepreneurs get real and practical insights on how to grow their business. Uh, Again, I'm welcomed by Mr. Kyle. I would like to say it's a pleasure, but it's not. How you doing, Kyle?
Okay. Uh, First of all, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. I think maybe let's start with this. First of all,
Tell us how you've been. Tell us how you've been first. And I noticed you got a haircut.
yeah, that's true. I did indeed get a haircut, and I'm good. And I told you I'm good, so don't ask me how I'm doing. But
Okay.
you, on the other hand, I can tell that you've aged quite significantly since I saw you. So tell us, what are you doing wrong, and what is happening in your life?
So it's only been a month, and I stopped doing your skincare routine, and so that's the outcome.
Classic. I like it. I like it. But listen, you actually told me something very, very cool before we hit play. That your kids loved our episode, like our podcast, because obviously because of me and not because of you. So let's just give them a shout out. I don't know if you want to call their first names or their fifth names. I don't know if you want to give them a shout out,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So Angela and Stefan are my kids, and they really liked the fact that you told me to turn off my camera, and that I have a face for radio. So they thought that was pretty funny.
yeah. Angela and Stefan, thank you. It's an honor. I'll try and keep it entertaining and helpful because, man, I must say, your dad is not performing well.
Thanks for that. They'll love it.
Cool.
Hey, so the topic for today is kind of a very interesting one for me. It's how to find clients, and I think usually for people starting out, obviously that's the most important part, right? If you don't have clients, you have a hobby, right? That's the famous saying. So before you get clients, any endeavor that you do in terms of your business is a personal endeavor, and it's a hobby probably, right? So until you can find
Yeah.
people to pay you, you don't have much of a business, right? So
Mm,
the topic today was how to find clients, how you get started, and
mm,
maybe let's do a bit of a background. Maybe you can
yeah.
tell your story, and I'll tell mine after in terms of like how I got started with this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think you nailed it in terms of like intro and what you're covering and all that. I think one thing I'll just preface before I share like how I started is um, I think we can both agree, right? Like, if we're starting now in 2025, it is a lot different than starting in 2015. Although some of the principles and everything might apply, but maybe strategically, one's approach or how they do it, might be different. So I'm keen to hear, your thoughts as we bounce back and forth, on that. Um, Look, I started an interesting way, and I'll give like a very short sort of version. So I was, and I mentioned in our first podcast, in our first episode, is that I was in a marketing position, and sort of I wanted to combine, website and marketing as a service, right? So I went on Fiverr, and instead of offering websites, like directly, hey, I do web design, or hey, I do marketing, I thought like, how can I offer almost like a lead magnet? So I offered a $5 report. It was called a website analysis report. And once they completed that, once they bought that, I would send like a 2 or 3 page PDF document for $5 to be like, hey, this is what I suggest on how you improve your website. And then once they were happy with it, which everyone pretty much was, then I would say, would you like me to create like a wireframe for you? And keep in mind, I'm no designer. I just did like the homepage, and I did it in PowerPoint, so you don't need these fancy tools. Nowadays, you've got so many, AI tools and all these other things to whip something up pretty cool. I just did it on PowerPoint, right? Like just like sort of rough layouts. Sent that. Once they were happy, then I would upsell them to a website for $1,000. And then once they were happy, I'd upsell them to, marketing retainers and all of those types of things. So I sort of flipped it from there. So long story short, I got like quite a few clients from Fiverr. I'm not including, friends and family and those types of things, but I think that's important maybe as a foundation. Maybe we can also touch on that. But I got my first few clients on Fiverr. Once I got more established, then I built like my own personal like brand and websites and everything like that. And then I got all sorts of different clients in different industries, insurance, restaurants, um, medical, legal, like all this random stuff, right? And then eventually I sort of niched down, and then eventually I changed my pitching and my offers and all of those things now. So that's pretty much like an intro version, I guess, on like how I started. Yeah, what would you say to that? And I think you lead us off. How did you get started back
Yeah,
in 1973?
1973, before there was even the internet. That's when I started selling brochures, door-to-door brochure salesman. It's interesting that you say that you offered this service and the clients were happy. I'd be shocked to hear that somebody was happy with what you provided, but I'll take your word for it. It makes for a good story, at
I
least.
must actually show you my reviews that I have on my Fiverr profile. I think you'd laugh.
We'll include a link to your Fiverr profile after in the episode notes. People can see for themselves. Um, uh, that it's interesting because and I'll ask you about that after, because a lot of people ask me that question: is it still worthwhile going the Fiverr and Upwork route? So maybe we'll chat about that after. But
Mm.
um, I actually, started. You weren't that far off. I started in the late '90s, is when I learned web development while I was still in high school. And back in those days, there wasn't as much competition. And I was, like I said, actually, that was even before high school. I took a course on web development and just started making websites for fun. And in those days, it was easier to find clients because, again, not a lot of people were doing this type of work. And so my experience started through like friends and family that had, businesses and that wanted to be, have a website and get started to like, have their presence online and whatever in those days. And from there, uh, in those days, again, we weren't really doing a lot of SEO or marketing online. We basically did sort of digital version or like an online version of door to door sales, where we used to like call people up and actually outreach to people based on who we knew or businesses that we would sort of like know around town, and just be like, hey, do you need a website, and go from there. So I don't think a lot of people do that today. They do probably more of like an outreach through email and stuff like that I don't think is very effective. But yeah, I basically got started through like friends and family, and then it just kind of ballooned through referrals from there. So I think the key for us was having good quality projects, and satisfied clients that would then refer us to other people in their industry and in their network. And I didn't really start doing serious sort of outbound marketing until probably just pre-COVID, where I was in a spot where I had a few big clients that were giving us a lot of work. But then I was thinking, well, it's great to have like you know, 3, 4 big clients that can keep you busy all the time. But what happens if you lose one of those? How do you bring in another one of that size? It's a big risk to the organization. So that's when I realized that I need to keep constantly bringing in new leads in order to replace ones that, may leave. So we have a pretty high retention rate, but, people leave for other reasons. Maybe they go out of business, or maybe they, decide to do something else, or your main contact goes to another company or whatever, right?
Mm.
A lot of things can happen in terms of turnover. So you want to be able to, use other marketing strategies to always find new clients, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the point of the episode, I guess, as well. So tell me a little bit more. I'm curious about Fiverr, Upwork, and those strategies today. Do you think they're still effective?
Man, you also touched on some interesting things, but it was so boring I can't remember what you said. But yeah, so look, uh, um, Fiverr and Upwork, freelancing platforms, all those things. I think it gets more slack than people, actually don't like it. Basically, people just dismiss it too quickly without like assessing it properly. So, for example, they say things like, it's too competitive, it's a race at the bottom. Yes, if you do it a certain way. And also depends which platforms you're on. So, for example, Fiverr and Upwork, good. I think, does it work? Yes, people still, make a living. It depends what service you're offering, how you're pitching it, all these other things, right? But here's the general premise on freelancing platforms. Regardless of the platform, if you look at, okay, so put it this way, reverse engineer it. Look at the profiles that are doing very well. Notice something. If they're charging, 50, 100, 200, 300 plus dollars an hour, or they're charging fixed prices of 10, 20, 30 grand, for a specific service, I can guarantee you they did not start that way when they listed. Very often, and I've interviewed a lot of people who've made like $1 million a year on Upwork, or like good amounts, right? They would say they started on like $5 or $10 an hour, And the problem is people want to start off on the $50 or $100 an hour, and they don't want to start low, And so you have to start low, really over deliver, get good reviews. Every like 3 to 5 clients, you slowly start increasing your rate, and that is how you get to it. It's like a long-term thing, 2 to 3 years plus, to start seeing some good money. Can you make some decent money within 6 to 12 months? Yes, but good money, I would say 2 to 3 years, solid. That's just my, quick thoughts on that. Now, in terms of the other platforms, there's actually some really good, platforms out there. The one is Contra, Golance, Hubstaff Talent, and a bunch of others. But those ones are like underrated that you can definitely consider and list your services on. And now remember, this is just one platform. There's also different approaches if you want to go a level deep. People just create their profiles and that's it. If you see a job that you can, how can I say, bid, like, try and pitch your services to, don't be like the swamp of the thousands of other people applying. Think to yourself, I want this gig. How can I stand out? Very simple. You create a Loom video, be like, you walk through the thing on like what you're doing. You talk, to it, to the camera and stuff. You try and stand out a little bit more. You try and give like, hey, I just want to show you sort of what I have in mind, a little quick thing. That's how you stand out. And I think that all the other strategies and stuff we're going to discuss and get into, you have to think to yourself now, the market is saturated. How can I stand out? So that's my whole long spiel on that. I'm curious to know what you think. What would you add? What
Yeah.
doesn't make sense? What would you add? Yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I think people are too dismissive of these and also other strategies that might be kind of like, maybe untapped or maybe, others may deem like a waste of time, but maybe other people aren't doing it right. And so it's kind of tough to say. I think I've seen people successful on Upwork. I've seen people successful using other strategies, and everybody seems to like swear by the strategy that works for them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of sometimes it's hard for others to replicate, but that's because the people that it's working for have put in a lot of effort to make them work, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, no, that's interesting. I've never used the platforms before just because, when I started, I had to use other means because those didn't exist in those days, right? So we had to do other means of marketing in order to get clients. So
Yeah.
I think they have their place, and I think they can still be effective. I wanted to also do a quick plug for our book, the that we have
Come
that
on,
has
please
client
don't do
advice.
that.
It's
Don't do that.
unfortunately Kyle's featured in it as well, so you can skip over his part.
When was I
But
featured in it?
you have a personal story in there.
I didn't give approval for that.
Yeah, you did. You're in there.
Okay, that's
Well, even if you
embarrassing.
didn't, you're in there.
I'm gonna have my
You can sue me.
I'm gonna have my lawyers contact you after this.
Love it. You're a lawyer, Mr. Magoo. No problem. Just feel free. So it has a bunch of strategies, about 40 strategies of how you can find clients, and I think a lot of them have examples of like them working, how they work for other people and like how you can employ them. So it's yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. I wanted to touch on the platforms because it's something people always ask for, and I know you have some experience with that. So
So,
In
okay,
terms of like,
so let me ask you a
yeah, go ahead.
question, right? So, obviously there's a lot of ways we can go and discuss. We can chat about so many different things. Ads is the one thing which if you want, we can definitely chat about, because
Mhm.
you're pushing that quite a bit now. SEO, outreach, cold calls, and a bunch of other ones. How do you sort of want to take it?
Well, so I mean, a lot of these probably strategies would be good enough to like even be an episode on their own. Maybe
Mm.
we pick a few that are popular and maybe that work for us that we can kind of go into a little bit more detail on.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Maybe we do like an episode on ads, SEO, and
Yeah,
some of those strategies that we
I think
use.
that I think that's actually a pretty good idea, because yeah, I mean, for example, even if we talk about ads is quite a bit deep, because there's so many different ad types. Google ads, Facebook ads,
Hmm.
LinkedIn ads. Even
Yeah.
like, I mean, we can even talk about publication ads, radio ads, newspaper ads, like so many different things. That we can chat about. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's do that. I wanted to ask you in terms of like if you were getting started today,
Mm.
what's one strategy that you think you would use in order to get new clients?
So this
Where would you
is
start?
okay. I would plug something, and it's not mine. Sadly, it's ours. It's a podcast episode on that niching down. I think was the last one that we recorded. The reason why I would say that is because if I was starting over, I would not think clients, clients, clients now. My first starting point would be like, man, what am I selling, and how can I pitch it, and how can I stand out? That's sort of my foundational things. Now it's like, okay, how can I actually sell this thing? Um, so I think I would spend the 80/20 on that, because that just gets overlooked so much. It's almost like I'm selling a website. Okay, let me, okay, so now let's just use the logic. Okay, I found a florist. Am I just making a random website on a different, like on what? On WooCommerce, on WordPress, on, Wix Studio, on Shopify? I mean, whatever. What am I going to do? Is it going to be hard coded? Is it going to be vibe coded? Whatever. Is it going
Mhm.
to be a legal website, a medical, whatever? So I think that is important, to actually try and think before you get started, like, what is my offer? How, like, why is it valuable? What problem am I trying to solve? And who is it for? You know, then once I've defined that, so like, let's say, for example, I was starting completely over and I defined something. I like e-commerce. So I would probably like niche down to like stores, like let's say, for example, and I use this example before, but I think it's a good example. So like, let's say furniture stores, but only on WooCommerce, or furniture stores only on Shopify, or furniture stores only on, Wish Studio, or whatever, platform, but niche down specifically. First of all, I'm in the industry. I've got clients, yeah, well, a big client in the industry. I've worked for them before, and all these other things. And I've seen what they spend on websites, and all these things, and it gets so intricate and it's so cool. So I think that's one thing that I would really explore.
Mm.
Now it's like, okay, how do you pitch them? So let's just say we've defined that, we've thought it out, whatever. So I've got that. So let's just say, for argument's sake, we'll use your favorite, platform, WordPress. So let's say we go on WooCommerce, furniture stores, on WooCommerce. So now what do we do is, we've got two things. Now let's segment this into new things. So we've got existing furniture websites, and we've got, ones that are like sort of like bare bones starting out. So that's two different audiences that we need to segment. This one's searching for someone, which may be like SEO and ads and all these other things. This one who already has existing websites, it's like, okay, what can we do to pitch them to either move over to us, that we can completely redesign their website, or move over to a new platform? Is there security vulnerabilities? Is there any advice that we can give them to like pitch them on, like, hey, why don't you do this? And, sort of pitch them like that. I would focus on maybe like either cold calls, perhaps, but specifically from a scalability point of view, most likely cold emails and cold DMs, and then we would have to define, what to say and all of those things. But I think
Mhm.
that's sort of the overview that I would probably go with. How about you?
The Kyle blueprint. I like it. I think it's good. I agree with you for the most part. Um, I think the biggest thing for me would be definitely agree with picking a niche. I think that's very important and easily overlooked. Yeah, we talked about that in episode 3, so it's interesting to kind of listen to that as well. I think it's so valuable. The other thing would be once you kind of have that niche and you have the product or service, how do you go about getting your first client? And I think that's the biggest sort of question mark for people. And
Okay, that's an easy
realistically,
one.
yeah, but the way I think about this is there's kind of like you're in two camps. Either you're starting out
Yeah.
and you don't have a lot of money to spend on ads and fancy marketing strategies, but that's fine. That means you have a bunch of free time. So
Mm.
use your free time in order to do, like you said, cold outreach, pitching to people within that niche and trying to find clients. What were you
Yeah.
going to say though? I cut you off.
Sorry. Yeah. You, so let's say you defined who you want to, offer websites for, all of those types of things. Now you want to figure out like how to get your first few clients. And I say it's easy because, I think it's, uh, well, let me explain why, and you can tell me if it's easy. So what I did a couple of years ago is I thought like, man, I want to actually diversify into another niche. So I'm just gonna say therapists, but let's say it's a little bit more niched, than that. So let's just call it like massage therapists, right? So I thought I want to focus on massage therapists, do like templatized websites and that type of stuff. Easy to outsource and decent prices, sort of the West pricing model and all that. Now, how do I get these clients? Completely different industry. I can't say, hey, this is what I did for, this law firm. This is what I did for this e-commerce website and blah, blah, blah. They don't care, So what did I do? I started completely from scratch. I didn't even mention anything about my previous experience. I've just said, where can I find a list of massage therapists? And so for example, I would type in massage therapist, Melbourne, Perth. In this case, I searched in Australia. I looked for ones on like Google Maps, ones that didn't have a website. And then I would simply say like, hey, I noticed you don't have a website. Is there any reason for this? I've got a website for you that you can have completely for free, no strings attached. You just need to pay for the hosting. The reason I'm giving this away for free, and here's the link, is I'm starting out a new a website business, and I know that this will, help your business grow and so on. So bottom line is I got like 3 of those websites completely for free, pretty fast. I got 3 testimonials. Once I got 3 testimonials, I put my website, price on my website, and then I pitched those testimonials to future clients, and then I scaled that from there. So that's sort of the approach that I went, and I think that is the ideal blueprint starting out now. You have to give something for free or extremely cheap,
Yeah.
no strings attached, get some credibility and testimonials, and then scale it from there. And that's just my 2 cents on that. What do you
Yeah.
what do
Yeah.
you think?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Super effective. And don't be afraid of doing some free work in the beginning. I think almost all of us
Mm,
have done that, to start
yeah,
off either free or it's like $500 for a website or whatever. And just
yeah.
to build up your portfolio, it's very powerful. The other thing, so I have some experience with this recently because in January, I started a new company, a new agency that's focused on just like the US. So it's more kind of geographical. So I wanted to start a new brand altogether instead of using my existing company, Clear Websites. And so it's been interesting because I've been going through this process of like trying to start it from scratch. And started with the new brand, new website, everything sort of from scratch, and then starting to find new clients. And I mean, my approach has been a partnership actually with another company in the
Mm,
US that works with a lot of business owners that I wanted to target, and then having them sort of be an inflow of work into this new company. And it's been really effective.
okay.
And actually, now that we have a client list of about 10 clients, it's been about 6 months or so. Now we are getting referrals through those
Mm,
existing clients. The
mm,
thing that I'm doing in parallel is SEO. and ads. So I'm doing SEO and ads on the main website in order to get more organic leads coming in, and growing it that way. But again, because I'm more established, I have some marketing dollars that I could throw behind that, and I know that's going to take a little bit of time. The referral network is kind of keeping us busy while that takes off, right? So
Mm,
that's, for
mm,
example, how I'm starting that new agency and going through the same sort of things that I would have gone through with Clio, just starting from scratch essentially. So
yeah, yeah,
I think again my situation is a little bit different because I'm in that other camp where I do have some marketing dollars in order to invest, in that new business.
mm,
So if I was starting from scratch, obviously that wouldn't be the case. I'm a big believer of what you mentioned, uh, kind of like that cold outreach, but done
mm,
right.
yeah,
So I wouldn't just spam people with like, find what people do is like they find they buy a list of like all the massage companies and wherever, and then they just spam them with emails. Like everybody does that. I get
yeah,
personally like 10 of those a day, right? So and I
yeah,
just block all of them. So what you need
yeah.
to do
But
instead,
go ahead,
yeah, what
sorry.
you need to do instead, I would say, is what you said, like find ones that either don't have a website or whatever you want to do. You want to do new builds or maybe you want to do rebuilds. If you want to do rebuilds, find ones that maybe have a website but maybe isn't performing or isn't scaled for mobile or whatever, something that you can improve, and then record a video. So like
Mm,
stand out, offer some value for free, be like, hey, I noticed your website. Do a quick assessment, be like, here's what I would improve, and here's how much it would cost. If you're interested, contact me. It's not going to take you long to record that video, for example. It would be totally different than somebody just sending a cold email from God knows where, and offering that service. If you're recording a personalized video, offering some value, offering some suggestions, and being very clear about here's what I do, here's how much it would cost, here's how we can improve this, and here's the outcome. I think the close rate would be much higher than just
mm.
sending a random email to somebody that looks templated, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, nowadays you get all this like AI junk automation and all this stuff, and that stuff doesn't work. I mean, in
Yeah.
today's time it doesn't work. Maybe like 5, 10 years ago, perhaps. But you touched on something very important, and maybe we can sort of finish, with this in the
Mhm.
next 2 or 3 minutes is um, SEO and ads, and I'm keen to really get into it and hear your experience, with it. But what's important to clarify there is that's very much long-term approaches to a degree. It's arguably ads is effective, but even that is debatable, and we can discuss that in a little bit more detail. And the one thing you've also got in your time, on to advantage is you've got a lot of runway. You've got an existing business, you're doing well, all of these other things. But if you had to be desperate, like, man, I need cash in a month or 3 months, very different story. And I think that is where you have
Yeah.
to be proactive instead of reactive and sort of wait. And that's where I think the cold outreach and these sorts of things are effective. And you highlighted the strategy very well. Maybe I can just share a quick little case study that also highlights this point, that I think emphasizes what you mean on very much like show don't tell, sort of approach, right? And give value, and all these things. So I think it was in about, I can't remember, it was 2016 or 2017. I was trying to focus on almost like creators in a way, as a niche, like course creators and that type of stuff. And I would like DM a few guys and that, but I didn't just pitch them like, hey man, are you interested in a website or whatever? I literally went through their landing page on what they were selling, right? And I'd be like, hey, have you thought about updating this? I didn't just list it. I literally designed it, and guess where I designed it? On PowerPoint. Yeah. Like a
Mhm.
one pager, right? And I'm like, hey, have you thought of doing this and this to improve it and blah blah blah. And not everyone replied. These guys are busy, of course. And the one I'll highlight is this guy. He's like, man, I tried this. This was like a week later. It's like, I tried it and I noticed an improvement. Can I send you like $500 as a thank you? And I said, no, no problem. Don't send it to me. But if you're interested in working together, let me know. About a month or two later, we were on 2.5 grand a month, a retainer. which was nice, and that lasted for about I think 7 months, just to improve a lot of the stuff that he was doing and all of those types of things. So all that to say is, once you stand out, once you don't say like, hey, do you want to have a call, and all these random things, but you show people, I think that's how you're going to stand out. So I'm keen to get in the juicy bits, in the details. But yeah, that's my
Yeah.
last bit.
It's a very, very, very long way about saying, like, giving yourself a pat on the back. Good job, buddy.
Classic.
I'm so great. I'm Kyle, and I'm great.
Make Kyle great again. Make Kyle great again. Yeah, we should
Oh,
actually
man.
call this episode "Make Nat Great Again." That'll be classic.
No, no. We'll make Kyle great again. We'll do that. That's going to be awesome. Hilarious.
But
Hey, I think
yeah.
it's a great way to wrap it up. I think we both gave some really good sort of actionable, tips on getting going. Obviously, there's so many strategies. I'd like to dive into SEO and ads maybe next
Yeah,
time,
first
but I'd
use
also
ChatGPT to get some advice, and then we can do that episode.
okay, sure,
Yeah.
we'll do that. No, you know what I was gonna do? I was gonna ask people actually, my kids and my mom who watch the episode regularly, to give us some ideas on like which one of these we should dig into. No, I'm just kidding.
Uh,
We'll talk. Let's ask some people on social media. Like,
yeah, yeah.
I'm very, very passionate about SEO and ads, but there's like 40 probably different strategies that you can sort of
Mm,
dig into. And I think it would be interesting to see if people want us to dig into one of those
yeah,
more specifically. And then maybe let's do the next episode on that.
yeah. Let's do if they want ads, SEO, cold outreach, maybe. I think those three.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good,
Cool.
man. Well, I
Cool,
want to
man.
say it's been a pleasure, but it hasn't been. So I'll talk to you again next month. Let's get this over with.
Cool, man. It's good seeing you.
You as well. Talk to you later.
Cool. Cheers.